Ladies and gentlemen, for those that don't know, I've screwed up the intro 3 times now, but third time lucky. Welcome to our third edition of the Southern Cross Athletes Journey podcast. Today, sitting across from me, we have someone highly experienced at the top end of college soccer. She spent her undergrad years at one of the best academic schools in the country before completing her fifth and final year at the well-renowned UCLA. She's just recently signed for the Brisbane Roar, and we can't wait to pick her brain on her fantastic story to date. So, Emily Pringle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I finally got it. Yeah, it took 3 turns. For those who don't know, I've had to go through and edit that out, but we're cooking with gas now. So before we dive in and talk about college soccer, let's sort of hit on something. So you've actually got some deep roots here in Australia, is that correct?
I do, yeah. So I'm actually an Australian citizen, but when I was a kid, I was born in California. And then when I was about 4 years old, my family moved to Sydney. We were there for 2 years, and then we moved back to the States. But every Christmas, we come back to Kiama's where my grandma lives.
Oh,
And
beautiful part of the
yeah,
world.
but my dad was born and raised in Sydney. And yeah, he's swam for Australia.
Yay.
Oh,
I'm gonna say it, but you just took the words out of my mouth. Oh, nice. So what is it nice being back?
I love it here, yeah. I've always wanted to live here at some point, and so the fact that I get to play soccer and live here at the same time is
Now most of our audience are parents or athletes going through high school here in Australia. So it'd be great to sort of get your perspective and your experience going through like youth soccer over there. Like, talk to us about what it's like in high school, a bit about your recruitment process. I'd be interested to see if we can draw any sort of similarities or comparisons to, what some of our kids are going through.
yeah. Well, I'll give you the long story then about how I grew up playing soccer and
Love it.
my recruiting. So, well, just like a little bit of general background, we do like rec as, or I guess I did. I don't know if it's the same. I'm sure it probably is, but
Probably, I think it's equivalent to like park soccer here,
yeah, yeah.
like
So we
association.
do that for probably a little bit. I probably did it longer than most kids because I didn't get into organized club. We call it club soccer. I don't know if it's the same over here, but and that's when you start paying for it and you go to your team plays in tournaments and you kind of grow up with that team depending on if you don't move clubs or kind of that kind of thing. So I started playing club when I was 9 or 10, and then um, you kind of do that until you get to high school. And then in high school, I played my first 2 years. And then what happened was they created a development academy, US Soccer did, and you couldn't play high school and club at the same time.
Okay,
So yeah, they don't have it anymore, but that was my experience. So
okay.
then I just played club those 4 years of high school. I wasn't getting recruited.
Yep.
So so up until my junior year, we do a lot of showcase tournaments. We call them showcase tournaments where all the colleges will sign up to come, and
Yep.
then so you know who's coming, and then you email them and be like, "Hey, come to my games." Or if you're a highly recruited athlete out of high school or club, then they'll just show up, and then you'll get a rundown of who was at the games, and then you can follow up. So a lot of the parents have a big role in that. And then so for me, what I did was I cold called coaches. So I really wanted to go to school on the East Coast, so I would just pick up the phone at 6 a.m. before school and call all the teams that I wanted to play for. And some of them were like, "Nope, we're not looking," right off the bat. I would say hi, and that was pretty much the whole conversation.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, so that was hard. But yeah, so I would call coaches, and some would be really friendly. And one of the schools I wanted to go to was a top 10 program, and I was like, you know what, I might as well try. And then they told me that they were coming to a game to watch me because they had one more spot. And I was like, oh my God. They come to this showcase and we lose 6-2. It was literally the worst game of my life. I never heard from them again. So I was like, okay, I'm probably not going to play in college. And then there was
What was
one
the
more
school, if
showcase
you don't
tournament.
mind me asking?
Huh?
What was the school, if you don't mind me asking?
It was Georgetown.
Georgetown. Okay,
Yeah.
good
So
program.
yeah, it's a really good program. And so we had like one more showcase that year. And I had told my club coach that I wanted to go to a very good academic school. Um, and a couple Ivy League schools happened to be at that showcase, and I played pretty well, I guess. And then what's funny is my coach came up to me afterward and was like, "Oh, Penn State um thought you were very good." And I was like, "Penn State, like they're really, really good."
Yeah, massive program.
And then yeah, and then I get in the car and like my whole mentality at this point was like I'm not playing in college, so this was crazy.
Yeah.
And then I get in the car and I get a call from the University of Pennsylvania, and my mom's in the car, and like this like I always wanted to go to a really good academic school, so my mom like muted the phone like right away and was like, "This is a very, very good school." And I was like, "Okay." Um so yeah, then the coach at the time was Nicole Van Dyke. She's now at the University of Washington.
Okay.
But she called me and I was over the moon because I wanted to go to a very, very good academic school, and that was kind of it. Yeah,
Yeah, wow. Okay.
that's
So
where I
you
went.
weren't exactly like flooded with loads of other offers. Like, was there maybe like some Division 3 schools or Division 2 schools that were showing an interest, or was it just literally University of Penn?
There was a couple D2 and D3 schools, but I didn't really, it wasn't really something that I explored just because the all the schools that I wanted to go to academically were Division 1.
Right.
So
Okay.
it wasn't, yeah.
Did make any
So I
sense
didn't
for you?
really like,
Yeah. Okay.
no.
No, that's cool. Well, let's talk a bit about the Ivy League. It's very well renowned across the world.
Mhm.
It's understood to be sort of the pinnacle of higher education. What's it like, going to one of these top schools?
Um, from academic and athletic perspectives,
Answer
all of
however,
it.
however you like.
I really loved Penn. Like I wouldn't trade that experience for the world. Um, it's definitely difficult. Like at a lot of programs, you'll see um, professors be not lenient, but more understanding of
Yes.
the time commitment and the traveling and the practice and like just the fatigue.
Let me guess, you don't
But
get that there.
yeah, at Penn, no.
Yeah.
So there was a few exceptions, but it was more like academics are first, like very, very, very much first. So that part was definitely challenging, and but the school was so like I learned so much like I don't want to sound like a nerd, but I am a little. I went to that school, so so it was a lot of time in the classroom and outside the classroom and study hall, and just like learning from like people who are the best in their field and like so they didn't really they're like, "Oh, you're an athlete, that's cool," but that wasn't really like but in terms of the soccer, like it was so fun to be around like-minded people that really wanted to do well in school and that wasn't like athletics wasn't their career path, didn't like wasn't their priority afterwards.
Mm,
So like people who really wanted to succeed on the field and then really, really wanted to succeed in the classroom as well. It was really cool to be around.
yeah, I can imagine.
And the soccer was still super fun, super high level,
Mm,
playing against other really good teams. And we had a really, really good team culture at Penn, so that was also super fun.
yeah, nice.
Um, but yeah, and they give you a lot of resources to help in terms of like in the classroom. Like we had to do mandatory study hall, which is common
Yeah,
across
everywhere,
a lot of
don't you?
schools.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, super high level soccer, super high level academics. It was a lot of fun.
What were the
So,
facilities like? Was it a really good setup? I've been to Columbia. I
mhm.
haven't been to Penn.
I wouldn't say it was like the absolute like state of the art.
Well, you've also been in
So
UCLA, so
yeah.
you've been absolutely spoiled on one end, and then
Yeah.
you've had that as well.
Yeah. So, but like in terms of practice fields and gym and game field, very, very nice.
Yeah,
So
nice.
yeah, it was really, we were set up well. Locker room, questionable, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's you don't spend too much time in your locker room anyway. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Age you get on, right?
Yeah. But everything else was great.
How do you compare, like, because obviously in your fifth and final year you went to UCLA, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Mhm.
But talk to us about like the Ivy League in terms of the level, especially on the female side. Like,
Yeah.
you played against some obviously some top programs at UCLA. Like, is it that much different to the rest of Division One? Like,
Mhm.
how strong is it, or is it not as strong for those of us back home that don't have too much of an idea about different conferences out there?
Yeah. I mean, the comparison is hard just because I went to UCLA the year after they won the Natty, so
Mm,
like you don't get better than
yeah,
that.
of course.
But in terms of like the Ivy League, when I was coming out of it, it was really starting to be one of the top conferences. And even like the last 2 years I was there, it was pretty much up there,
Yeah,
top five or
really.
six. Yeah,
Okay.
conferences. I don't know if that's still true, but the level was still really high. I mean, last or either a year or 2 years ago, you saw like three teams going to the tournament out of the eight. So
That's massive.
yeah, so it's definitely getting a lot better, and the level's still really high, I would say. I think like Harvard's obviously been up there for a couple years,
Mm,
Brown, Princeton.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, in terms of comparison to UCLA, I it's not that I just think UCLA is like a top five program
Yeah.
consistently. So
Well, you said it yourself. You got there the year after they won.
yeah.
Right?
So
I
yeah.
think I think for some people that don't know, like the Ivy League's really good, but it's hard to get into an Ivy League school, right? Like they've
Mhm.
only got a small percentage of kids that they can even go after, right? Because your
Yeah.
academics need to be through the
Mhm.
roof, versus some other programs, they've got a bit more leniency on kids they can bring in based off their grades, etc.
Yeah, 100%. So that's the other thing. Like I was very blessed to have an opportunity like that. And the athletics does help a little bit, but like you said, it's a little difficult to get in. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
We've just placed the kids in an Ivy League program, and it's not exactly straightforward
Yeah.
placement, right? There are so many
Mm.
different hoops you've got to jump through,
Yeah.
and things like that. It's not an easy process, which I'm sure you understood.
Yeah. But very worth it, I will say.
For sure.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about your fifth and final year. Like, how did UCLA come about? Was there not an angle to maybe even go down the pro pathway straight after finishing at Penn?
So I definitely thought about it after Penn. I didn't really know what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
but I had told one of my previous coaches, because a little sidetrack, but at Penn I had three different head coaches, which is
Oh
kind of
wow.
crazy
Yeah.
for a,
That is,
for a college program. But
yeah.
so one of them had had known that I always wanted to go to UCLA at some point. But it wasn't really something I thought about. I thought about staying at Penn for another year and extending my undergrad. I thought about going down the road to like one of the local Philly schools.
Yeah.
But then I kind of was like, and I was seeing if maybe I could go overseas. So I was really doing everything, like just opening every door and seeing what really stuck.
Oh,
So I reached out to a couple California schools. I reached out to Santa Barbara, UCLA, and now I'm blanking on the last one, but there was one more. And then, um, and then
did
one
they all
of
make
the
you an
UCLA
offer,
coach.
or
Sorry?
they all make you an offer?
No.
Oh, okay.
So
That's fun, right?
yeah, with the other two schools I had to apply, I wanted to I with those schools I was exploring a more academic route.
Okay.
Uh, So I applied to their marine biology programs because I that was kind of something I wanted to do. I didn't get in, so that kind of closed those doors.
You're not getting from
Um,
an academic perspective.
yeah, not from an academic perspective.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay. After
yeah,
doing 4 years at Penn. Wow.
yeah, yeah. And then I, the UCLA, one of the UCLA assistants reached out to me while I was in season at Penn,
Yeah.
and we got on the phone and talked, and she was like, "Oh, we have this program called the Transformative Coaching and Leadership Program. It's a Master's of Education. You should apply to it." And I was like, "Okay." So I applied to that, finished out my Penn season. I'm kind of going all over the place, but then like March, April comes around, and I haven't heard from UCLA in a long time. Or I think this was February. And so I reached out, didn't hear from them. Then I reached out again,
Yeah.
and then I heard from them after the second time I
Okay.
reached out.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's gonna hate that I said that.
Well, they should
So,
have responded the first time.
um, so yeah, and then so at this point, again, I'm really not thinking I'm gonna do a fifth year.
Yeah.
So I'm more exploring the overseas option, but then they answered one of my subsequent emails, and I was like, oh, what happened was I found out that I got into the coaching program.
Okay.
So then I reached out to them and said, hey, like I got in. Is there a spot on your team?
Yeah.
Pretty much. And so then I had a call with the head coach, that coaching staff is phenomenal. Sidebar, they are phenomenal. So
Oh, brilliant.
I had a call with the head coach, Marguerite, and then from there she was like, why don't you come visit? I visited, and then it was kind of up in the air till like June because they were looking at other players. And then in June she was like, so at this point I'm still not sure where I'm going. And then in
June.
June's late, yeah. June's very late because we started in July or
Yeah.
beginning of August. And then I got a call in June, and she said, we'd love to have you. And I was over the moon. And yeah, that staff is incredible. So it was just the best year, really.
Incredible. 'Cause that's twice now you've brought that up.
Yeah.
Like, what did they do that was so great? Obviously, it's not like you went through a few coaches to get originally. So I'm sure you've had a couple of different coaching styles
Yeah.
throughout college. But why were they so great at UCLA? I mean, they obviously must be good because coming off
Yeah.
a championship.
Yeah. I honestly had an incredible experience there. The coaches, team culture. When I was there, it was Marg, Molly, other Molly, Gina, and Goff. And they just all like worked. First of all, they work very, very well together. They all complement each other very well. Um, and just like constant communication and like being open and honest and also caring about us as more than just players. And you felt that it wasn't like they were going through the motions, like you genuinely felt that they cared about you. Like for example, I was freaking out on the first week, if I'm going to be completely honest, very much.
I know a lot of people do, right? It's a new environment.
Yeah, very nervous. Didn't feel like I was playing well, like the whole nine. And I told Mark, and I was like, I don't think I can do this. Basically, that's what I said.
Oh, wow.
And she basically was like, okay, let's go on a walk before practice. And we walked around the track for like an hour. And I told her about like how I was feeling. And she was like, we didn't expect you to come in here and be like the best player. Like we knew there was going to be an adjustment period, and we know it's a lot, but you're doing really well. Like just relax. And she gave me some coaching points, and it was just like a very, very open and like great conversation. And they all are like that. They all care about you as a person and like want you to be the best player you can be, and also be like yourself on the field and like do what makes you good at soccer. Like, because it's different for everyone. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Hey, like that open line of communication is just so massive when you speak to
Hmm.
coaches. It definitely helps. Hey, like if you can feel like you can go in and have an honest conversation with your coach,
Yeah.
it's massive. And I say it to all the kids, like, take away the facilities, the level, like all the shiny things that
Mhm.
happens, when you're going down this recruitment process. I think the number one thing that kids should be looking for is that relationship they're going to have with their coach. I
Yeah.
think it's
I
it's
was
massive,
yeah. The coach and the team culture, I think, is
huge,
really important. Yeah.
massive, massive.
And I was so lucky at both schools, like very, very lucky.
Yeah, nice. I love
So
it. Have you had a similar sort of feeling getting to Brisbane?
I do, yeah. Like
Okay, that's good.
the team is so like so nice, so great. Coach great. Staff, the whole staff has been so welcoming and just like I know I'm gonna learn a lot here and have fun. So
Yeah,
it's been great. I've been very, very fortunate in my soccer career.
oh,
I will
that's
not
good.
lie.
I like that.
Yeah.
Before I run down and start talking about the A League,
Yeah.
last sort of thing, like talk to us a bit about like the training, especially at
Mhm.
UCLA. Like, is it that much different? Like, what makes the program so great? I'd be very interested
Yeah.
to see like what your training looks like on a day-to-day basis, and did it differ much from what you had at Penn?
Mhm. Um, I would say there was a lot more tactical emphasis at UCLA and like it felt more intentional with practices and
Okay.
like everything translated to the game, even if it seemed like every passing pattern, every like mental thinking type of like possession drill, like everything translated. And the intensity of like just the level of players that UCLA is able to bring in too.
Mm,
Like just training is very, very intense in a very fun, competitive way.
yeah.
Um, and obviously the coaches bring that too, but the team culture also brought that. But training's hard. And it's a lot. So, and especially in the US, there's a very short preseason, but so you train a lot in those first couple weeks.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on, talk to us a little bit about like finishing up at UCLA. What's next? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. Like in terms of what I'm doing now.
Well, like what was going through your mind? Like, were you hell bent on going pro? Did you have any options in the US, or were you potentially looking to go out into the workforce? Like, what was going through your mind?
Yeah. I definitely knew, well, once I got to UCLA, I felt a little bit more like, oh, I could definitely go play professionally somewhere, even
Okay.
if it wasn't in the US.
Yeah.
Um, so I was kind of already thinking about it, though not really during the year because we were so focused on like the season.
Yeah.
But definitely was like in the back of my mind a little bit. And then the draft in the US is in January, which I think they might have gotten rid of it, but
I've heard that's yeah, what's happening.
yeah.
Mm,
So I was definitely thinking about it. I kind of knew I wanted to play in Australia, kind of what I said before, just
mm,
based on what I wanted to do in the future and like living here, even if regardless of if I was playing soccer or not. So I thought it would be a really good option.
yeah.
And I've heard great things about people coming to play here. So
Yeah.
I was definitely thinking about it. And then obviously my teammates are very talented at UCLA. So a couple of us went to the draft and like entered it
Yeah.
and a couple very, very good players got picked up. So that was really fun going to see. I did enter. I didn't get picked up.
How does it
I
work?
thought I might,
Yeah.
but I didn't.
Is that was gonna be my next question, because a lot of people in this country
Mhm.
have a clue, right? Like, when we had Jordan Thompson on the podcast, I'm not sure, you may have played against her when she was at Gonzaga.
Mhm.
She's got a mad story of like when she went through the draft. It was like the highs, the lows of it.
Yeah.
But talk to us about like entering the draft. Like, so do you have to put
Yeah.
your name forward, or is there like people earmarking you before it starts and saying, yeah, we want you, like we want you to enter your name, etc.
Yeah. So basically you there's like a draft sign up sheet, and you fill it out with your name, your player profile, and then highlight videos, and you just submit it, and then it's available to all the coaches in the NWSL, and you show up on draft day. Since you've entered the draft, they give you a VIP wristband, and you take pictures, and there's like a section for people that are like draftees, I guess is the word. And then there's like an audience. And we were lucky enough to have it in Orange County, so a bunch of the team came, and then all the girls who entered the draft were there too. So that was really fun, and then we had some girls get picked up, very talented players. And then afterwards, you can still be invited to like a training camp, so you kind of wait and see if that's going to happen too after the draft, which could be like in the next week. But yeah, but obviously that didn't happen for me, so I pivoted and started looking into the A-League.
How did that come about? Because I know you, because you've told me in the background. But for those of us that don't know, like you didn't use an agent, did you?
No, I didn't. So basically, I asked one of my coaches at UCLA if she knew anyone that might be connected to the A-League. She had a couple emails, and then I emailed those people who then emailed me, very kindly emailed me a list of every coach in the A-League and their emails and phone numbers.
Awesome.
So after that, I emailed a couple teams that I was interested in and heard back from Brisbane Roar and a couple others, but they didn't really, not very urgently. So I went with Brisbane Roar and talked to Alex and Kelly, and I was really excited. So that's where it went. That's where I went.
Wow. A bit of a self-made recruitment process.
Yeah.
Just old
Kind of,
school. It's like you're trying to find a college again. Hell, I'm going to get myself
kind of,
teams. Who you feel like?
yeah, kind of my thing, I guess.
Just call yourself an agent. I mean, you're practically doing their role.
Yeah, seriously.
So how have you found it so far? Because you've not been here for long, right?
No, I've been here since August 25th, but not in Brisbane.
Okay.
I flew down with my dad to see my grandma, and then we flew up here about a week later and kind of did some city exploring, and then he left about a couple days before preseason started, and yeah, now I'm still here.
Yeah, okay, cool. And how have you found it so far? Like, talk to us in terms of the levels. Like, coming into the A-League, you've been at very good Ivy League school. You've been at arguably the best college Division One program in the country in UCLA. Like, let's hypothetically, right? Let's say Brisbane UCLA had a game. How do you reckon it pans out?
Um,
Be brutally honest.
honestly, oh, my teammates are gonna kill me. I think UCLA would win.
Really?
And yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but when we were at UCLA, or when I was at UCLA, we scrimmaged two NWSL teams and we tied them. So
Wow.
yeah, so
Just shows you how, like, for people back home listening to this, like, wow.
Mhm.
Okay, like that is how good top end college soccer is. Like people don't even
Yeah,
understand. Like you're basically in a professional outfit.
yeah. So yeah, that question's probably gonna get me in trouble.
I don't think enough people listen to the podcast think you're better than that. That's cool though. Like,
Yeah, it was fun.
it gives you, it just gives people a bit of perspective as to like
Mhm.
what the levels are like. Especially
Yeah,
at the top end of Division One soccer. That's crazy. Well, look, Emily, thank you so much for your time today. It's
of
been
course.
brilliant understanding your story. A lot of the kids I speak to, they all want to go to UCLA, all right? So they're all going to be interested to hear what it's like, the perspectives between this and the A League. And we're excited to tune in and watch you play this year. I think it'll.
Yeah,
Well, I do think the women's game here is headed in the right direction, especially with the influx of top talent that we're getting from the US. There's a lot of girls that are coming out of the college system, coming into the A-League. Cariel Ellis has signed at Melbourne Victory. We had Jordan Thompson on the show. Yourself, you're up in Brisbane now, and there's a ton more. It's an exciting time.
for sure. I'm super excited. So hopefully you can come to a game in Brisbane.
That's it. Well, I'm on the Central Coast, so I'll come to a Mariners game. How does that sound?
Oh, okay, that sounds good.
But awesome. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much.